My guest today is Anna Booth, co-founder of CoSolve, which provides independent mediation, facilitation and arbitration services in workplaces in Australia, New Zealand and South Africa. Welcome to In Her Shoes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us.
It's a great pleasure.
I'd like to talk to you about being on a board.
Yes.
Now, you've held board positions since 1993. What has changed about being on boards between then and now?
Well, for me, the boards that I was on early on in my career were larger. I had a slightly ambiguous role initially with the Commonwealth Bank, where I was appointed by the ACTU, and I had to pretty quickly realise that I was there for the shareholders, and now that's very clear for me on the boards that I'm on. But boards had more of a, this might not sound so good, but superficial role, and now it is totally different. The boards that I'm on, I'm chairing committees, I'm absolutely getting my hands dirty in a whole range of areas. For example, I chair the risk committee of ME Bank, and I'm right in the middle of the risk department, understanding the processes very well and therefore being able to monitor the appropriate management strategies that they're undertaking. I think that for every board member in Australia, the time that we take on our boards has expanded. I think after the Centro decision it's going to expand even further, and therefore board membership has become more of a profession in its own right than simply something someone does along with another job, for example.
I've heard you say that it's important to have women on boards for diversity. I've also heard you say that women will question the unquestionable. What do you mean by that?
Well, I'm loath to generalise, as I've said, but I do actually observe from my female colleagues on boards a willingness to ask a question about something that others are perhaps a little embarrassed to ask. It might be revealing a lack of knowledge of a particular accounting detail. It might be how we treat goodwill, or whether we should or shouldn't recognise an intangible asset, depending on whether we bought the company or we grew the intangible. These things are very, very important, as the Centro decision has shown us, but you're expected to know them. Particularly if you're new to a board, and maybe that's the advantage of, many women are new to boards, they can ask a lot of questions about the operations of the business. They can be, and they are quite demanding about, well, I want to inspect this, I think the board should go on a tour of that, and take the whole board out of its comfort zone. But I've often then also had men say later, gosh, I'm glad you asked that question because I didn't know that either. So I think that's just something that it might be not related to our femininity, but simply to our our newness on the board.
On the board, and being willing to not know.
Yeah.
When it comes to quotas on boards, are you for, against, neutral?
I'm for.
You're for?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Because I don't believe that change happens if you don't have a big systemic push. And I see absolutely no danger with quotas of filling the quoted position with inadequate people, because there are so many wonderful and brilliant women available to choose from. I've had experiences where male board members have said they couldn't find a good woman board member, and they were speaking to a person who was absolutely perfectly equipped for that role. I think there is a lacuna in many men still about the appropriate sort of package that a board member should come in. And I reckon until we have quotas, we won't see 50-50, which is what logically we should have, not because it's a right, but because it simply flows logically that if you're going to tap into the capability of the whole population, that's got two genders, and therefore you would logically over time see 50-50 on boards.
And that representation being equal, if you like. For those who are looking to start to look at board roles, what do they need to do to be prepared?
Okay. They need to be doing the job that they're doing now really well. They need to also, and I think they need to do this anyway, as leaders in business, they need to be looking at the impact of their job on the other jobs. So they need to be thinking across the organisation as well as up and down. They need then to turn their minds to governance and what is the difference between governance and management. There is leadership in both, of course. And then they need to let someone know that that's what they're interested in. So if it's in their own company, and there are many, many boards, people think of boards as the top 200 ASX companies. Most companies will have subsidiaries. Most companies will, many companies will have investee companies. Many companies will have joint ventures, strategic alliances. So there are many opportunities for women to take positions on those internal boards, and that's what I'd recommend to start off with. The old way was do a not-for-profit, and there's nothing wrong with that, and I really encourage people to make a contribution to the community, but I don't think that's the only way. And I think actually if you want to get a fast-tracked into the business board, then doing it on subsidiaries and joint ventures and so on is a really good way of doing it.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.